So a question I've been thinking about, I don't know how this thing, uh, um, so I guess like in voice, there must be a time clock, right? So for example, I guess if we play voice, the voice is always naturally clocked, basically whatever you are recording real time and that's it. Because a video, you can tune the time. Um, and also like for video, they tell you the so-called immersion. I forgot the exact time slot. Like the people will feel you are immersed if the latency or the time variation is within a limit, some number. I forgot exactly which number.
It's some milliseconds that it's
Something, right?
something.
The video guys will tell you right away. So like, oh yeah, whether that natural boundary is. And I guess to voice as well, if you say something and within that period of time no one responds, then you feel kind of like odd. You feel you're aware that this is not very natural. Yeah, I guess the question is is there a like a common way the voice and the video are integrated today?
I don't know.
So like these game engines, how do they produce the sound? I mean, not just the music part is relatively easy, but a conversation, like how do they produce it? Maybe they don't. Maybe they're just like texting because that's quicker for games, right? That's quicker.
You know, I can't believe though that there's not integration because the experience would be so rare.
Mm-hmm.
Have
Yeah, I asked one of the game developer, um, and we had a
we're going to have just an informal chat. Please join us.
and had a quick question for him, and then very quickly he said, "Oh, I like to type because that's more precise."
Yeah.
John Stine.
Hi, Ronnie.
Nice to meet you. Joe, you want to use this? Yeah, I'll use it because you're recording, right?
Yeah.
So if you need me to do that, yeah, I'd be glad to do that. And let me do an official start here, and then
Oh, thank you. I don't have an official card, but LinkedIn scan.
a LinkedIn would be great. We're going to have just an informal conversation down in here, so please.
Very soon you will be formal.
Hi, this is for those of you virtual, and to officially start this recording, this is the Birds of the Feather session. And we are here on Wednesday, the 19th, if I believe. And the Birds of the Feather session is about the immersive interfaces, voice as a citizen in the metaverse. And there's a small group of us here. We're going to have an informal conversation, and I look forward to learning from you. Because you're all much more smarter than I am. So I'm John Stine, Executive Director of the Open Voice Network. We are a Linux Foundation open source community, and the Linux Foundation community dedicated to conversational assistance and all things voice. So again, welcome and thank you. I'll hold this. You've got the magic boom boxes here. Let me bring another one up. And it's not as if we need them to hear each other, but this is being recorded. Wenjing had a great question. Let's just start with that. And it's about sound, it's about voice, sound in the metaverse. Why don't you bring that up?
Sure, yeah. So I've been always wondering whether it's in metaverse or just a game, if I want to add voice to it, a conversation rather than simply music or something pre-made voice, right? What do we have any kind of integration that's happening? So what is the best practice today? And if there's a voice as a agent, like people suggesting you can have a voice agent for Q&As for technical support within this virtual environment, how that integration of these different systems would work. It seems like in the game culture or designs, a lot of times there's still the devices or hand control is quicker and more precise, so that tend to be the way to go. But what about the voice interface?
I can talk a bit about how it's currently used in games, if that helps.
Please. Yeah.
So conversations between people in a game is a solved problem. People can have a conversation. There's plenty of software out there to link people together to do it. Some games integrate that into their game itself. So you can just plug in, turn it on, and it just magically works because it detects everything on your computer and that side of things. The interesting thing when it comes to the metaverse is if I have 10,000 people in a game, do I hear all 10,000 people? How do you process that sheer amount of information? And should I hear 10,000 people? Should I only hear the 5 people that are closest to me? Should I only want to hear what my friends are saying, so people on my friends list? How do I use a kind of what's the word I'm looking for? Some sort of interest management. Interest management of things that I'm interested in and should be interested in. That's the interesting problem right now when it comes to sound or conversations between people in a big simulation.
And that's, you said, it's an open question right now. There are hypotheses, theories about how to pursue it, but yet...
Yeah, some people have said they've solved the problem. There's some videos out there. I think Improbable have done a couple of things around it. I don't know how far they are with the solution and how it works. They did say they got 1,000 people, I think, talking at the same time. But again, from a user point of view, 1,000 people talking at the same time is no use to man or beast. What can you do with that? You can't process that information yourself. So the step beyond that is the interest management of who do I want to listen to, who is important to me, and how do you make those decisions beyond that? And that's the current problem in the metaverse right now, is turning all this information you've got into something that a person can absorb. Exactly the same problem with graphics as well. You can make 5,000 people appear in a simulation, but if you're looking at 5,000 things stood in front of you, you can't do anything with it. So what's that? So it's all about how do you get the information into the person's brain in a way that they can use it, whether it's visual, whether it's sound.
So I guess one way, sort of like a straightforward way, would be solving this as mimicking the real world, which is based on distance. There's probably some wave propagation properties you can simulate, right? That would be one potential kind of easy way.
Absolutely, yeah. So the way that currently works in a game is you have something called line of sight, or it's probably not the best thing to call it, line of X, let's call it. So knowing everything, and you have different shapes that come out of yourself. So you may only have a cone that's in front of you, and you're interested in anything that falls in that cone. Nothing else is sent to you as information. It could be a bubble that surrounds you, which will probably be more important for sound, because sound, you don't have to be looking at it to hear it. Right. So you could have a bubble around you, and anything that's in that bubble is what you hear.
I see.
So that's currently how it's done. But equally, you might not want to hear the person that's standing behind you. You might want to hear your friend that's 6 miles down in the simulation somewhere else, in which case he then takes priority, or she then takes priority over the person that's standing behind you. And you hear them instead. So, and then you can go a step further as well, is if you know what, this gets really Big Brother, so if you know what people are talking about, and you can pick up on key words or what people are saying, you then start connecting people with the same interests together. So if I talk an awful lot about cricket, being British, talk an awful lot about cricket, other people who talk about cricket might get dropped into my area of interest because they have the same conversations, therefore we might be interested and want to talk to each other. But that's getting a bit Big Brother which
But
Is-
to that example, let me ask this question, and ask some other questions. Is who is currently owning that voice data? I express interest in cricket.
Hmm.
Someone connects me to the platforms of the game. Where is that data flowing? Where is that kind of ownership
In-
and activity?
right now, nobody, because this stuff doesn't exist yet. It's sort of the sort of you can do with the data. If you were to do it now, the data would probably sit on whoever's processing it. So that would be whoever owns the world that it's built in,
Right.
because they have access to the data, they'd process it. Again, another step you could take, I guess, is here are subjects I'm interested in talking about, and then you make the decision yourself to share that information. So you could gatekeep that information if the world that you were in allowed you to do that, of course.
So behind the scenes, these voice servers, we call it, work similar like a Zoom, basically.
Yeah. It'll be a voice server. I mean, this is the solution for now. If you were to do it tomorrow, you would have a voice server up somewhere, and all the information would go through that, or multiple voice servers. Because as soon as you've got, a voice server can only make so much stuff work.
Right.
Until you need a second voice server, then a third voice server, then a fourth. Then you've got to start communicating between those as well, because if you move out of someone's area of interest, then suddenly you've got to know where that person is and what voice server there is to start connecting them to you. It gets all. Well, the thing I was talking about yesterday and earlier today about distributing your services, because they're going to need to talk, because you're going to need more than one computer that's running everything.
Thank you for
And I
sharing.
guess
Yes.
the second part would be maybe, relate to the voice assistant. And a simple question would be like in the game world, if I need to ask for a QA, a support question or something, is voice a choice, and is that something?
So the problem here isn't the technology in doing that. The
Yeah.
problem here is, okay, so if I wanted to phone somebody up at a gaming company and say, hey, I've got a problem, can you solve it for me? You'll get no one to do that job, to answer the call.
Right, that's what we were thinking about, like a voice
Yeah,
AI
so an AI
assistant,
type
right?
thing is probably the only way you're going to get that to go, and that's, I mean, AIs exist in
Yeah.
written format, so why can't you do it in,
Voice bots exist.
yeah, so there's no reason why that wouldn't happen.
But currently the business processes for that just don't.
I mean, you can do it through a website, so if you've got a problem, it's all about self-service. I have a problem, I type it into a website, and suddenly that solution is given to me one way or another.
I guess you can ask the person next to you.
Yeah,
You can help yourself.
Yeah, exactly. And a lot of it is, especially in gaming as well, a lot of it is community sourced. So you have, if you've got a problem, I don't go to the website when I have a problem with a game. I go to Reddit,
Right.
and I go to the Reddit page on there and go, right, here's the problem. Just search
Right.
Reddit, you get an answer.
But that does break the so-called immersion, right?
Unless Reddit is in the, you have access to Reddit in the Metaverse.
Right.
So however that would look, don't know.
right. Yes.
Let me take 10 minutes and ask your opinion and ask your advice. Up on the screen is a listing of what our organization is currently working on. And I can speak in some detail, but interoperability of conversational assistants. And my question as I go through this list is, what will be of value to the metaverse, to you? What would be of value to the development community? What would be of value broadly to the technical community of the metaverse? If there are things which is in the Open Voice Network is primarily speech people, voice people, conversational assistant people. Are there areas in which we would be wise, and I've reached out to a number of you already, to be bringing in individuals like you for consultation and advice? Or are there areas that, as we see the investment in the metaverse and what this future is, we would be very wise to double down on knowing of the interest and value that this work could bring. Interoperability among assistants, and Wenjing and I were talking about this yesterday. Think of this as two elements. One would be the ability for assistants to share dialogues between each other. Alexa talking to Google, talking to Magenta of Deutsche Telekom, talking to Mycroft, talking to Baidu. Doesn't matter what platform you're on. The other would be the opportunity for developers who are pursuing voice to choose best of breed. I prefer this NLP, I prefer this NLG, I want this, I want that. I'm able to build from multiple components as opposed to simply adopt large scale one or the other. A second is the ability in conversational assistance to enable users, vaguely defined now, to have the voice provider, the platform, the infrastructure, listen but not log. We need always to listen, but to protect the data of the interaction, protect PII, just overall data. Is there a switch we can flip? And some of our technical advisors have said, yes, we can build this. And in fact, there is an operative system in work right now that we're studying for potential adoption, so that there's no logging, but there is the listening that's required to handle the dialogue. A third one, and I've had conversation with several of you, is authentication. Where do we go? What do we do? Voice-based with other factor authentication, how do we, and what would be the value overall? And then synthetic voice detection, synthetic voice support, some approach vaguely defined right now, but with the recognition of what, without getting into the fear and the FUD of synthetic voice and deepfakes. What can and should we do in this realm, knowing it's out there? And I'm going to shut up. I would just love to go, starting with you, Hart, call it just your thoughts. What should we, from your perspective, if at all, what would be of value for us to be working on or double down on?
So I would like to start with a question, actually, before I address your request. So I'm currently part of the Linux Foundation networking. So I'm mostly interested in how voice processing is going to create new demands on the network at all. So one related question is, I joined the Linux Foundation 6 months ago. Before that, I worked for Samsung, and some of my colleagues were working on Bixby and others. Research stuff related to that, and they started looking at on-device AI for doing all the NLP locally. So my question is this a thing? Is it going to be a thing, or are we still going to do voice and NLP centrally for a while now?
It's a great question. Will voice, let's call it processing, will voice processing be decentralized? We certainly hope so, and are in the process of right now. Our work assumes on-prem or decentralized, and then assumes cloud. So we are working in both norms. We assume both will be there. We know that certain players are going to do cloud. It's going to be taken back. But as enterprises adopt voice, increasingly it will be decentralized and it will be on device or on-prem, or there'll be another architecture. And so, yes, we're working both, but certainly see our enterprise conversations are much less send it to the cloud and much more what can we do locally in some way, shape, or form. Maybe on a device, it may be here, it may be there.
Yeah.
Yes.
Okay.
Does that help?
Yeah.
But back to the question, please, thoughts?
Yeah,
Hart?
I mean, I guess privacy preserving machine learning is a huge field. This is more of Randy's point, I guess, but this is, I don't know if you all have looked into this or if this is something you follow, but it's definitely worth checking out. There's a huge academic presence in this area. So
Speak that again, Park, so I can take my notes.
privacy preserving machine learning.
Privacy preserving machine learning. You
So-
said a significant academic literature on this.
There is, yeah. And this is not only about, just the data, it's about the whole process and whether, the model or using the model can leak data. Can I trick something about the machine learning process into, leaking a bunch of private information? So it's a big thing.
And from a layperson's perspective, it's recognition of certain data within the ML process. That simplifies it far too much, I'm sure.
Well, it's really just the whole ecosystem. So there are a lot of ways that you can have your data compromised or exfiltrated or something in the machine learning process. So it's,
As a place to explore, a place to know.
Yeah, just, I don't really follow this field that much. I know it exists.
Yeah, I can shed some lights on. So there are a good starting point, I would say, is that you can look into literature related to federated learning.
Federated learning.
Right, which is basically dividing the learning process, because we imagine learning as in sucking a lot of data, which we don't like, and then they do training or learning process training on that set of data. And you could divide that algorithm into two pieces. So half of it happen in your local device, for example, and by the time it's done, the learning can still continue, but your private information is, how should I put it, it's mangled. So they can't identify you anymore. They can't, like, that was the theory behind this. There's a bunch of that methods they could make them, the learning still work. So that's like probably one of the good place. There's a lot of papers and actually actionable systems. I think some of are deployed as well.
This is great, thank you.
Yeah.
Thank you.
I'm thinking the experience in the metaverse. What do we want that experience to be like? To me, I want to be able to talk the way I normally talk without putting too much energy into it, because I've just had a hard day at work and I've sat at home. I've decided to go into the metaverse to do whatever I want, so I'm feeling lazy. I'm going to talk the way I want to talk, and I want it to be understood each time. And I don't know, I think the question back to you, can you do that without logging the data? Does it still learn without logging data? How does it learn how my voice changes and how it changes over time as well?
It can, if there has been appropriate training prior. So if, let's choose a language that may be novel. There probably isn't any training data or the voiceover. I think Amazon is doing novel now.
Yeah.
But in order to properly learn that, or a high-pitched female novel could be training has not been done.
Yeah.
For you and me, the training has been done, and thus the logging does not get in the way of the listening and of
Okay, that's good.
Yeah, and if I may, it really depends on what subject you're talking to. So for instance, in early example, let's say I want a voice assistant. It's purely on helping me play the game. Then because your voice conversation, there are data sets today that's very properly gathered, and so you can basically produce your voice conversational agent without any privacy problem, because all the data is already sourced and they know where it's from. They check that everything's nice. Has nothing to do with you.
Yeah.
And it's prior thing, right? So they learned the language.
Yeah.
And because the conversation is only about technical support, then all that knowledge is from somewhere else. It's not from your voice. it's not. They may want to know your question, but that question can be, they can save it by text, for example. They don't really need your voice anymore, like the sound waves anymore. They only need to know what customer are asking, what kind of questions.
So what I think is going to be interesting is I don't see me using voice for customer support. I see me wanting to use voice for making the experience I'm in better.
Right. So that's my second part, but that's usually not what people are thinking about it. People think, well, like, I want to talk poetry, I want to talk philosophy. Then of course, well, this agent will know about you, and there's no way around it. Like the agents can have an option, unless some other external ways to stop them. Otherwise, they know. It's like you and I have a conversation. You're going to disclose things, then I will know, no matter what. Right?
Yeah,
One
indeed.
of the major challenges of voice in healthcare right now is simply the vocabulary training. Here comes the vocabulary among specialists, because people have said, well, let's use voice in search results.
Right.
Well, this is a highly specialized vocabulary. And the first effort is a disaster. This is worthless. Until the vocabulary can be properly trained in those voices.
Then we've got the other problem that the vocabulary of the metaverse is going to constantly change. So as new things are added to it, there'll be acronyms that people use. There'll be shortages of words that people use because they're not going to say the exact thing.
Exactly.
But that constant
Even
learning
for
has to
like
happen.
those technical support, if they want to learn how to talk to these people, well, then that privacy comes in. Right? They have to know you, and then it's a very hard problem to solve.
Oh, indeed. But anyway, the most important thing to me is logging in with a voice. It'd be amazing. That's
I
behind with a sign, so I was like, got to dominate the conversation.
We've got 5 minutes, and then we're going to shut down. Yeah.
Yeah, as I said, I think for me, in my current position, it's mostly about understanding what will be the network requirement, the infrastructure requirement for voice processing, whether it's local or central. I think voice is just another one of the dimensions of the metaverse. So, and my gut feeling, it won't be like the biggest demand creator. So, like real-time 3D video will probably have higher demands on, at least on the network, maybe on processing. If you want to do AI close to the edge, that could be a challenge, I guess. Yeah. So that's something so the other thing I'm in charge of is edge computing within this foundation. So I guess if we move a lot of the AI related to NLP and other voice processing closer to the edge, we need to understand what kind of architecture needs to exist at the edge, and how would a typical edge architecture for voice processing might look like. That's something we might want to tackle soon.
One thing that's missing off, I don't know if it's relevant to you, but I'll mention it just in case. The thing that I look at this and think what is missing from here for the metaverse is moderation of people talking. I know this is focused on conversational systems, but it seems like the same technology is there. So moderation for people talking. So if I go into the metaverse, I say something to anybody who can hear me, and I say very, very bad things, that wants to get blocked quickly. It's almost like a pre-processing needs to happen, a pre-check before it even goes live, in order to stop that being said. Because once it's said, it's
Yeah,
said.
you walk in a room, there's a virtual cop there.
Yeah.
And within the milliseconds of the latency that is required to maintain.
Exactly. So that's going to be very much an edge process thing. It has to
Yeah,
be done
yeah.
via an edge server.
I think that's much bigger of a problem.
Oh God, yeah. I
Yeah,
had this
and
idea.
all the rest in comparison is easier.
Yeah, but the moderation is going to be key, I think, because right now you can get away with it if you look at somewhere like Twitch, which they don't moderate what people are saying, and they've got millions of hours streamed every single day of people talking, and they could be saying anything, but of course you can report it, and then they take action, and there's something significant for someone to lose. If you do that on Twitch, they lose their account, they lose their followers, they lose their income. So there's a real hit there and real reason not to be bad. But if you're logging into the metaverse, you're not going to suddenly be banned from the metaverse forever.
Right.
So what's the what's the mechanism in going there? And then you're going to have things such as educational things for young kids, and they're going to want heavier moderation than before. And that immersion, the allowing the voice, no matter who you are, but knowing that it's a safe place to do it, is I think it's going to be quite an interesting problem. There you go, have a problem.
Thank you. Thanks for the time. Thanks for the conversation.
Thank you.
Good.
Thank you. And I think lunch or what's next?
We have one more session. So
One more
there's
session.
another BoF in here, and then we'll
Thank you all.
Thank you.
Thank you.